Yes, that's right. Back by popular demand. Well, back by a deafening silence that we took to be a reasonable demand that you were all just too polite to make. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner Season 2. That's right, the first 353 episodes were just Season 1. That is just mad! Like all good sequels, in Season 2, you can expect us to ramp up the action, gore, expletives, gratuitous mentions of Donald Pleasance, and, of course, the requisite nudity. So, when you hear this noise...
That's enough, Marjorie.
Remove your first item of clothing. And make it something good, not just a sock or a polka dot neckerchief or something. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. You can also donate to the show directly at aftermoviediner.com. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please put down your lemon meringues, silence your bowels, and rub 2 nearby dogs together for the one, the only. Thank goodness, because any more of him and we'd have to start a call. John Cross.
Up a bit, left. That's perfect. All right, hello, and welcome to the After Movie Diner podcast. How have you all been? I know that I have been adequate. So, on this very special show, we have someone who is, well, at this point, probably the patron saint of the After Movie Diner. Being our first ever well-known actor interview on the show many, many moons ago, and who is now kindly returning to these dingy booths for a 3rd time. It's legendary actor, producer, director, singer-songwriter, musician, and everyone's favorite sore loser of battleships, William Sadler.
Hit. You have sunk my battleship.
And although it's always a pleasure to talk to Mr. Sadler about his variety of ongoing acting works, he's actually on the show this time around because he is happy and proud to announce that he has his first ever album of music, The Kitchen Tapes, coming out in just a couple of days on August 1st, available wherever you find music streaming. Spotify, Apple Music, all the usual places. In fact, the first single off the album, Thoughts and Prayers, is already up on Spotify if you go looking for it. So William Sadler, Thoughts and Prayers, you'll find it. It's fantastic. Take a listen. Full album out on August 1st. But also, very soon, there'll be a new website, therealwilliamsadler.com. I'll put the link in the show description, where folks will be able to buy actual CDs or vinyl albums that he has personally autographed, with all the profits going to St. Jude's Children's Cancer Research. That's fantastic. Can't wait for that. I'll be picking up a vinyl album of my very own. You better believe it. So it's exciting stuff. We get into this and some of his more recent film roles and the wonderful chat that follows, unfortunately, these annoying, awful, irritating adverts that Spreaker demands I include in my otherwise unblemished and perfect podcast. Please be patient. You can most likely fast forward them depending on where you're listening to this. Whatever you do, definitely don't encourage them. Instead, use your time, energy, and money to support William Sadler's The Kitchen Tapes album when it arrives on August 1st. And don't forget to check therealwilliamsadler.com for being able to purchase the album on either CD or vinyl, with all those profits going to an incredibly worthy cause of the St. Jude's Children's Cancer Research. All right, so enough of my blathering. Fast forward the following adverts and then on to this phenomenal conversation with the excellent William Sadler. But I wanted to say, Bill, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We first talked 10 years ago. Can you believe that?
Has it been that long?
It was 2013. You had the double whammy of Iron Man 3 and Machete Kills coming out. That was our first conversation.
The greats and the near greats. Wow.
Yes.
Well, that kind of, that's amazing. I would not have, if you'd asked me,
Yeah.
how long ago was our first encounter, I wouldn't have thought 10 years. Time flies.
Time definitely flies, especially the last 10 years. So much has happened. So much has gone on that
Remarkable.
baffles the mind. No, but it's funny because you were the first experience I think I had. I may have interviewed some sort of independent filmmakers or independent actors or so on, but you were certainly the first person who had been in Hollywood movies or known name actor that I had interviewed. And I remember us having a fantastic conversation. We talked about kind of your action work from the 80s and 90s. I think I got you thinking more about the fact that you were sort of iconic back in that genre. I remember you kind of having a realization during the conversation. Oh yeah, I kind of did do a few of those sort of big Hollywood action films.
I did.
Yeah. And I think you enjoyed reminiscing, I think.
No, I did. It's funny. Time is a cruel mistress. And some of those films hold up and some of them don't. Every once in a while I'll see something that I've done 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And I'll think, whoa, my God, look at that. You can tell by the style. You can tell by the dialogue. You can tell by the acting.
Yeah.
But I don't want to name names. But and then on the other hand, there were films. I think Die Hard 2 holds up pretty well. They show it every Christmas. It's like it's a thing.
Yeah,
it's a thing over here. It's like, Miracle on 34th Street or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah.
The Christmas movies. And
the
Die Hard movies are right there, bang bang.
I agree, and there's a lot of those 80s and 90s. I think I don't know whether Die Hard or Lethal Weapon started the tradition, but of course Shane Black, every movie he's made has been set at Christmas. Even Iron Man 3 is technically set at Christmas, which is sort of an in-joke to all the fans because the first Lethal Weapon is of course set at Christmas, and then Die Hard 1 and 2 are both set at Christmas. And I think
it's like one of all the Christmas messages that
right.
you can put out there, peace on earth and goodwill toward men, and
yes.
And let's
fighting terrorists.
Look at your neighbor and put your arms around your neighbor and see if you can't find some commonality. Die Hard 1 and 2 are like,
yeah.
It always strikes me as just completely bizarre that those are now Christmas movies.
Christmas movies. Because my generation
sort of official Christmas movies.
Yeah. Well, my generation grew up. I used to watch all those Miracle on 34th Street and things like that, but also weirdly musicals like Oliver and things like that were sort of Christmas movies that would play on British TV when I was growing up. But no, I think our generation. Sorry, what, Bill?
Yeah, no, that's the spirit. Your generation, what?
Well, so our generation, it was weird when we were growing up in the UK. The films that would come on TV around Christmas time, because they always waited to show Hollywood blockbusters that had been out on video but had never had their TV debut. They would wait to show those at Christmas. So we would end up watching Jurassic Park or James Bond or like all these sort of big. Indiana Jones was like a big thing that was shown.
Right.
Die Hard. So action at Christmas makes sense to us. I don't know if it was the same over here.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I think over here there's a I don't know. Maybe it's just it has to do with the Oscars or something.
Right.
They tend to release the blockbuster, the big action flicks, or they used to anyway. They would release them in the summer, in the beginning of the summer, and people would go to the theater, and see them. But that's sort of, and then as Christmas got closer and the end of the year got closer, that's when you release the ones that you thought had a shot at Academy Awards.
Oh yeah, and that was the same in the UK.
That's when you release the ones that had British actors in.
Right.
And
right,
and so I said, well, look, but he's English. So,
that's the truth. That's the same in the UK in the theaters, but on TV, because they wanted they knew families would be home at Christmas and everyone's sitting around the boob tube or the goggle box or whatever you want to call it. People, they would put on. So, for example, I think if Jurassic Park came out in the theaters in '93, it probably screened Christmas of '95 on TV, because it used to take about 2 years for it to kind of come out on BBC or ITV or whatever. So
for it to finish its
So
making money out in the theaters, and then
and then on VHS, of course, and all the other formats before it hit TV. So I think that's certainly for us, that's where it came from. In the US, I think the generation I've met, and I now live here. I've lived here 15 years now. All the friends I have of kind of my age group just all grew up with those genre film. They just much prefer genre film. Genre film just became the thing. And so you look for Christmas movies, so you look for whether it's Silent Night, Deadly Night on the horror side of things, or whether it's Die Hard or Die Hard 2 on the action side of things. We have now this long list of movies that are set at Christmas, but really have nothing to do with Christmas at all.
It's like, there's no Santa Claus. There's nothing.
Right. So it's all good.
There's one that I made. I think I made it 1.5 years ago, called Salem's Lot. That's a good size Hollywood movie based on the Stephen King novel, and it was it came out as a mini series with David Sewell. Yeah, I think in '97 or something like that. And
they've done it a couple of times. They did it,
and they scared the living crap out of people.
Yeah,
and so we took another shot at it, and starring Lewis Pullman and Alfie Woodard, and it's that one they say it's gonna be out in 2023. I hope that's right. I don't know why they keep kind of pushing it off.
I bet they're just seeing. It depends what. I think they tend to see what's playing, as you say, like the big blockbuster summer stuff. They probably decided to make it, and I don't know. I'm just guessing, but off the back of the success of It, the reboot of It. And actually, it's funny you bring this up, Bill, because yesterday I just got a screener through for the new documentary King on Screen, which sort of talks about everything that Stephen King has done. Yeah, and it has
Shawshank.
Shawshank is on there, and obviously Shining, and Mick Garris is interviewed, and The Mist. I watched King on Screen last night and followed it up with The Mist because I knew I'd be talking to you. And Frank Darabont your friend Frank Darabont is interviewed repeatedly throughout the documentary. It's a really good documentary.
So I have to watch for it. King on Screen,
it's called. But yes, so they were talking about, obviously, I think Tobe Hooper did Salem's Lot as a mini series, or at least an extended TV movie back in the day. Which Larry Cohen then followed up with Return to Salem's Lot some years later. Right. But then there was a Donald Sutherland, Rob Lowe version that came out, I think, in the early 2000s. That was
a lot. Well, it's like
TV thing, I think.
You write something as good as that, and everybody wants to get their teeth into it.
Right. Literally,
It's like,
it's a vampire story.
yeah, exactly.
Pun intended.
Everybody wants a piece of that one. Or let me add it.
Yeah.
But
and horror lends itself to the retelling, I think.
It's so good.
Especially King.
Wow, it's such a good story. You know.
Yeah.
It scared the crap out of me. I had never seen the David Sewell miniseries. I remember that scene because where Danny, the little boy. Floating boy at the window. I remember just seeing that in like, a review or something of it, and it scared the shit out of me.
It scared the shit out of all of us when we saw it the first time.
It's hard to go home, it's hard to go back and retell stories if you know what's coming. But I think we did a terrific job. I was like, I had a lot of fun with the character that I played. I was the town sheriff who's just a coward through and through. Every time anyone asks him to come and investigate another weird death, he's like, "Oh, look at the time."
Right, exactly.
Geez, I'd love to,
Yeah.
And he just wants no part of what's happening in Salem. Doesn't serve him well.
No.
In the end,
but it also brings up. So one of the subjects I wanted to chat about is also the fact. I think you just. I know you've executive produced before, but you just produced your first film, which was a horror film. She Came from the Woods, and obviously I think we talked before about like Demon Night and Bordello Blood and some of the other horror films that you've been in. Horror, along with kind of action, has sort of been peppered throughout your career. And so do you have a particular connection or affinity with the genre, or is it just that that's what comes across your desk?
I think it's a fair amount of it is that's what comes across my desk. And I get attracted to the roles. I get attracted to the people that you get to play. And Stephen King in particular writes these humans,
fantastic.
These wonderful, they're so fun to get under the skin of, Haywood and find your path through Haywood in this story. Or I forget my character's name in The Mist, but, I don't know. I guess I don't think I gravitated to horror because I'm such a fan. I don't watch a lot of horror. I get too scared. I do. I get scared. I get caught up in the story, even though I know how they shot it. I know,
sure. But that's fantastic.
I know the blood and
that,
and it's like, but I still get caught up in the stories, and I get, if I get scared enough, I just like, I can't watch. I don't want to deal with the nightmares later on when I have to go down in the basement and change a light bulb or something by myself, or switch the loads in the laundry at night. And
I get it. I love that though.
There's a sound, and there's a sound behind me or something. It's like a jump out of my skin. And the slasher movies, especially I can't even name them because I just don't watch them. I'm just not a fan. I like all my fingers.
Yes. Well, I really
do. I'm not a fan of.
No. I like them because everything you just described. So we just bought this house last year, and I made the little screening room in the basement, of course. But right. But why I stay up watching movies And it's funny. Sometimes I do like put on like I put on The Mist last night at like midnight. I was still watching it at 2 a.m. or whatever. And you do turn a film off like that. Especially, I watched the Frank Darabont director's cut in black and white, the really atmospheric version that they released on DVD.
Yeah,
turning, and I have all the lights off because but then turning the lights on. I do have to, even though, as you say, like we know how it's shot now and I have to turn all the lights on. I have to open all the doors. I have to check everything before I go upstairs.
Exactly.
You don't grow out of that.
Exactly. No, we're still like 10 years old when we're in the movies, Yeah. I think that's that's part of the joy of movies, is we all turn back into the kid that sat and watched Ben-Hur. Oh, yeah. And was, the popcorn hit the ceiling when or what was the one? Jason and the Argonauts.
Yes.
I saw that when I don't know how old I was, a mere pup. And my brother and I went to see Jason and the Argonauts in a theater in the afternoon because we were little kids.
Yeah.
So, our parents dropped us off and came and picked us up and so on. But the skeletons coming up out of the ground, he throws dragon's teeth on the ground or something, and then these skeletons come up and fight him.
Yeah.
I think there's something about movies. We just sort of automatically switch on that 10-year-old head again.
Yeah.
And say, okay, what do you got?
Oh, I agree. And there's nothing worse than seeing the sometimes the internet chatter where it's like you can tell someone has lost that innocence. If you can't sit down in front of a movie and be in awe of it in some way. And I'm talking about like good films, hopefully, rather than being in awe of battles. But you need to retain.
If they're well done.
Yeah,
if you're telling a great story and you're telling it well,
yeah,
I'm there. I'm a goner.
Yeah.
I can't look away.
It's funny because there's always a lot of discussions about bringing it back to Stephen King. There's always a lot of discussions about like remakes, right? They're kind of the sort of problematic part of the horror genre in a weird way. But what I always think of like King when they've redone them, as you say, because they're so character driven. I always think of Shakespeare. People have done 500 million different versions of Shakespeare, right? Because it's all about the characters and the language and the interpretation. It's always about like, what can I bring to it that someone else maybe didn't, right? Adaptations of King, I feel like, I don't feel that they're remakes. I feel that they are exactly that, like that Shakespearean thing of, what can we bring to this story? What can we bring to these characters? That's how I always look at it. Rather than, well, let's remake Evil Dead. You know what I mean? Like Evil Dead was a movie. Its horror was in the way it was directed or the way it was acted. It's not anything to do with the script or the characters or the novel or anything, right? So, but remake, anyway. So
I never saw. I do get your point, and I think I agree. There was a remake of Psycho a long time ago.
Vince Vaughn one,
where they did it shot for shot.
Yeah,
and I couldn't figure. I didn't see it, so I probably shouldn't criticize it. But if you're gonna do it shot for shot, it's like show me the original.
Right. No, I'm with you on that one, Bill.
If you're gonna do a remake of Streetcar Named Desire, remake it. Dude, show me a different version of Stanley Kowalski.
Yeah.
Show me that animal.
Yeah.
With a different face and a different voice. And I can watch it. I think you're right. I think that's the reason that it's exactly the same reason that people want to, every generation wants to play, everyone wants to play their Hamlets and their Macbeths.
Right.
It's not because it hasn't been done before. It's because it's such good stuff.
Yes.
it's such rich stuff for actors.
And the best thing about good writing is that it is relevant no matter what year it's made in. So you can take, like, Carpenter redoing The Thing in the 80s. He's talking very much about not only did he refer back to the original book, but he's talking very much about the paranoia and the infighting or whatever that was happening at the time. If you I would love to see a Streetcar Named Desire movie that is about kind of today, if that was at all possible, you know what I mean? And try and bring.
I think you probably could. I think, you'd have to, you'd really have to look at it and say, what would you lose?
Right.
What wouldn't work?
Yeah.
If you set it in 2023, but as long as there are actors, as long as there are directors who are great storytellers and writers who are great storytellers, there's going to, we won't be able to stop. I'm surprised they haven't done a remake of Shawshank yet.
I think that would be.
They must have thought about it.
Someone's probably discussed it, but there are some films that feel untouchable to some extent. Although,
you do Citizen Kane or the Wizard of Oz or something.
Right.
You take. What are you gonna? You're gonna do it. You're gonna do this better.
Yeah. There's certainly different takes. You could probably, if you went back to the original novella, although I know Darabont likes to keep it as close as possible, you could possibly go back to the original novella and find an angle in there that may not be in the film, but it's that would
comparisons. You'd be killed by the comparisons.
Yes, of course.
I've often felt, and I love Frank dearly, and I'll be in anything that he ever directs, no matter what. But I think the fact that Shawshank came out so early in his career as a director, it feels a little bit like Orson Welles and Citizen Kane, where no matter what, the great Ambersons, no matter what you do after that, it's going to be compared to that one, Citizen Kane,
capturing lightning in a bottle.
And it isn't going to be Citizen Kane. It's going to be some other movie.
Yeah. So, but he's a fantastic, and in fact, the documentary talks about this. But those 2 or 3 directors, Rob Reiner's done a couple of King adaptations, Darabont's done a few. They talk about those kind of director-writer partnerships. Obviously, Romero, of course, was a great friend of Stephen King and did some collaborations with him as well. So they do go in depth to both Frank's collaboration with him, but also George Romero's and Rob Reiner's. And it's funny because even though you probably couldn't get 3 more eclectic directors in a weird way than Rob Reiner, Frank Darabont, and George A. Romero, their King adaptations all share, obviously they share King, but they share also, I feel like, a cinematic DNA. You could kind of play them together and they would sort of fit. Maybe it's the Americana setting. I don't know whether it's the Americana settings or the characters or the way King kind of, but there's sort of a really lovely through line. They all take place in the same world, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, in a way. It's King's world.
Yeah,
I think. It's fast. I'll have to look for that documentary.
Yeah, it's great.
It sounds like fun.
So I was also looking at your recent career, and I'm really trying to get hold of some of the independent films you've been doing. A Stage of Twilight. I would love to see A Stage of Twilight. So I'm a big Bill Sadler fan, as you know, but I'm also a big Karen Allen fan. So I would love to.
She's so good in this movie. We had so much fun. I keep thinking the shoot was very low budget.
Yeah.
The director was Sarah Schwab, wrote it and directed it, and it's sort of the story loosely based on the story of her own father, and as he got sick, and it turned out through just happenstance that her dad worked at the steel mill in Buffalo, and so did I.
Yeah.
Early on, I had a summer job at the steel plant where he worked. She grew up in Eden, and I grew up in Orchard Park, and they're like 10 miles apart.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
fascinating. We were sort of ticking off the likenesses, and they were great. But what I felt, I mean, generally the story was so beautiful and so beautifully drawn. These two characters, Karen Allen and myself's characters, this couple who've been married forever and ever, and this illness comes along. But what was wonderful for me was that I've never in my career, in all the movies that I've made, I've never been asked to sit down and play all the keys on the piano. I've played the villain over here, and you get, this is what's required. You need to stay in this world, or you're the sheriff in this town that's being chased by vampires, and you figure out quickly what's required and what they want and what you have to offer that's, worth watching.
Yeah.
This one, he the two of them go on this journey together, and it's just this beautiful big long journey. I told her I felt like I'd gone to Oz.
Yeah.
I would come home, and I don't know how to explain it to anybody else, where it was more honest and more real and more. It had more me in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a weird thing to say, I guess.
No,
but
I think I understand what you mean.
But I got to use me.
Yeah.
I got to use me in great abundance. And as a result, it was just this beautiful, little dance between the two of us. And she's so lovely to work with. And it's still making the rounds of the festivals. So it's going to be at the Long Island International Film Festival. It's won all kinds of awards, and
I see that on the trailer.
It won like best actor and best film.
Yeah.
It's and I guess I'm assuming one day it'll find a release of some kind, because I think it's a good enough film.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's, as I say, it's in the circuits. There's been a lot of award buzz about it. I think what I found from the trailer, and again, I've only seen the trailer, and I'm excited. I'll figure out the PR company and get in contact so I can see a screener when it's about to do the either streaming and or Blu-ray and or whatever release. It hopefully
that would be fantastic. I think you'd be surprised, because like I said, I've never been asked to play. I've never been asked to do that.
Right.
In all the films and all of the, the funny characters and the Grim Reaper and the villains and the President in Iron Man 3 and all of the different roles that I've been able to play and I've loved playing. I've never had one that was so full.
Yeah.
Of just humanity and love, and she was just a exquisite partner to bounce off of, because she's.
I'm so glad she's sort of coming back to acting.
Yeah,
because she was. I mean, the iconic performances she gave throughout the early part of her career.
Right.
And I know she was still doing things here and there, but then obviously, I think the fourth Indiana Jones, she came back to the big screen in a big way, and then I think since then has been doing more films again, which is, for us fans, that's fantastic. What I got from the trailer, and this might be personal to me, so I might be sharing a lot of me right now, is that and I don't know whether this is a male female thing. I don't wish to make it necessarily gender specific, but while I don't necessarily fear death, in other words, the idea of the end or not existing anymore, whatever, I fear getting ill. You know what I mean? I fear that, having to go through the treatments and the illness, especially as I get older and I see friends of mine, get cancer, unfortunately, and other diseases that thankfully they survive, mostly, touch wood. But I fear that. I fear that process. And it felt like from the trailer that your character is kind of going through that a little bit. Like, he doesn't want to have people see him go through the illness, and he doesn't want to have to emotionally share that with the other characters in the
I think that's accurate. He doesn't he's a proud man.
Yeah.
And he married above his he married above himself, his station in life.
Right.
She's a librarian, she's a teacher, she's written a book. She's and I think he can't stand the idea of her seeing him that way.
Yeah.
That there's something wrong with that in his eyes, seeing him weakened or helpless or in pain or whatever is in store for him. He'd rather go finish it somewhere else,
right?
And just make a clean end of it. And I'll get enough wood in for the next 3 years,
right?
So for the fireplace, and then so he goes around the house doing stuff to get her ready.
Yeah.
So she'll be okay.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't, and that's really where they butt heads, because she's of course having none of that. Right. You're not gonna go crawl off under the porch and die like a cat. We're gonna and they work it out. They've come to a solution, which is great.
I can't wait to see it. I really can't wait to see it. I love seeing I love seeing films about, we've sort of had a plethora of things that have been made recently with at least a teen audience in mind, right? which is absolutely fine. Like we said earlier, we're all 10-year-olds at heart. But there is that occasional lack of just a mature film or an intelligent film or a dramatic film that doesn't necessarily, and so when one comes along, especially one starring actors that I so admire, it goes to the top of my list. So I can't wait to see it. It's going to be fantastic. And I also think what I really I think respect is the right word about your career is you're an actor who seemingly, from your IMDb credits and from everything I've watched, the medium doesn't seem to bother you, meaning, TV, big blockbuster film, independent film, whatever, video, whatever it is, you just, show up and you want to act, you want to play that character, you want to perform, and so on. And seeing you in these independent films recently, because I think we talked about VFW last time you were on.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think you were back. I think the last time we chatted was 2020.
That was the last action film I did, I think.
Yeah. You had talked about Bill and Ted 3 and VFW, and even Bill and Ted 3 which baffles my mind. Even that was one that the studios kind of reject, and kind of Keanu and Alex kind of had to make it. It didn't have the budget of the previous two. I as far as I'm aware. So
right.
Which is baffling because Keanu Reeves is like the biggest star on the planet. So like, why wouldn't you make Bill and Ted 3? But so it's nice. It's been nice to see you in these independent films, and like I said, you produced. She Came from the Woods, which I was just watching the first half of before I joined the interview.
I should also mention that, well, there are two things. I did an HBO miniseries called Full Circle.
Yeah.
HBO Max, I guess, or maybe it's just called Max now. That Steven Soderbergh directed. Yeah. And it's written by Ed Solomon, who wrote the Bill and Ted movies and the Men in Black movies. And it starts July 16th, 13th, July 13th, here on HBO Max. And it's a 6-part miniseries, and I think I'm in the first 4 episodes of it. Claire Danes and Dennis Quaid.
Oh, great cast. Okay.
No, it's a great cast, and it's kind of it's Ed Solomon's version of a whodunit.
Oh, it's brilliant. I love whodunits.
It's that these people have secrets, and I played Dennis Quaid's brother, and we've had this we've had this thing between us for 25 or 30 years or something that, and all based on something that neither one of us knew. But he was lovely. Anyway, I mention it because it's coming up, and that should be a lot of fun. Claire Danes was wonderful.
Great.
Always is. And I have a CD that's coming out, or an album.
Yes.
No, it's called William Sadler, The Kitchen Tapes. I considered calling it William Sadler's Greatest Hits album, but I never put out an album before. So
no, but that would be great, wouldn't it? Just to bold. I
think my second album is going to be William Sadler's Greatest Hits.
Yeah.
Like I've been making songs for 30 years.
I love it.
But during the pandemic, I've been writing, and I used to do like a one-man show of my songs in Los Angeles, and I would play guitar and sing and tell stories, and
yeah.
And it was great fun, and I had written quite a few songs I've never really been good at doing covers. I find the songs that I love, I generally love the way that they've been done. And if you're not going to improve on it, I don't know.
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I don't play covers either. I write all my own stuff. So
Right. And it's not easy to write good songs, but I've written enough of them now that I can sort of pick and choose the ones that I like. When the pandemic hit, and I came home. I was shooting Grudge at the time. No, Unholy. At the time,
right.
I was shooting the Unholy.
Oh yeah, you play Father Hagen. Okay,
I did. Oh, he was killed by another demon.
Yes.
I hate.
What a life, Bill. What a life.
hate demons.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, I thought I have all of these songs, and I would do open mics and things and around here, but it all of a sudden during the pandemic there was really nothing to do in the business. So I thought I'll start recording these, because that I could do remotely.
Yeah.
And this gentleman named Matt Kulowitz, who was, in fact, we both won Emmys we got certificates saying that we won Emmys. we didn't actually get the statue. Stephen Colbert got the statue.
Okay.
But we did this show called Our Cartoon President.
Yes.
And I did all of these funny voices for, all these politicians. I would contributing. But anyway, he's a sound engineer. When he heard some of my songs, he said, let me hook you up. And he set me up with this recording thing in my house.
Yeah.
And because I'm a kind of a Luddite with computers, we rigged it up. He moved to California, and we rigged it up so that he can go on my computer, and all of a sudden the buttons and sliders are moving all around. He does it remotely from California. And I'll sing, or I'll play along with a track that someone else has. We have a friend who plays piano, and he would lay down the piano track, and then I would sing over it. And we managed to put together this album, which I love, and I think they're good songs. Some of them are funny, as you might imagine. Some are romantic.
Yeah, over the pandemic, you put, I think, a video out of the Talking With You on the Telephone, which is sort of a lovely take on, being remote, but, still being in love with someone and not being able, being in love at long distance, that song. And then more recently, you put out Thoughts and Prayers, which is obviously more of a tongue-in-cheek, but also a very serious song about kind of gun control and sort of the pro-gun side of the way they react to things. I don't want to necessarily get all political, but the way they react to things, or the way. And what I loved about, I want to talk about both songs because they're the ones I know. But the Thoughts and Prayers, what I absolutely loved about it, outside of the subject, which is something that is dear to my heart. I have friends who live down in Bethel, Connecticut, who know about the Sandy Hook tragedy and various other things. I have other friends who have been touched by other issues with that. And even if I didn't, it would still be, certainly as a Brit living in America, I'm like, why do you need all these guns? But anyway, what I loved about it was that the Thoughts and Prayers response, right, which seems sort of very hollow and very cynical. You were able to write the song with, I know this sounds odd, but with an acknowledgement of a God, right? So instead of it being like an atheist song where it's just like, shut up with your thoughts and prayers, it's actually a song that goes, well, actually, why blame or label or give God all this responsibility, which I really loved about it.
Thank you.
Because it what it does is it goes, this isn't just some angry, cynical response to the response of those people on Twitter or whatever it is. This is actually something that it's like, well, we're all in this together. And while I don't necessarily believe in a deity, those that do, why would you want to burden them with it? And so I really love that take on it, because you're not singling anyone out in a negative way. You've actually found a way to kind of go like, well, there's actually solutions to this down on Earth. Like, let's figure this out, which I really loved on it. Because
I think when you stand before your maker, and
right,
he says, "How to go down there?"
Yeah, exactly.
Did you try to feed the hungry? Did you try to stop the bloodshed? Come on, tell me what you do.
Yeah.
You say, Lord, I left it up to you.
Right.
Like,
it was such a unique take
mean
on it.
I didn't do anything. I left it to this deity to, which is not to make fun of people's belief in the deity. It's just
not at all. It's inclusive of it.
Unless you follow it up with something. I've often thought that, all the folks that hold the Second Amendment and they feel like they're under attack. They feel like they're coming for my guns. That they really should help us figure out. They should help us figure out a way. They know these machines. They know these guns.
Right.
They could be so helpful. Their advice. They could be so. If they would allow themselves to be part of the conversation,
right,
rather than things being decided by people who've never held a gun and are horrified by the idea of guns,
right.
It would be so much better, and more effective.
100%. I agree.
If the people that love and treasure these things and really want it, they're not going to let go of them no matter what, could help us figure out how to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy people walking into schools and killing 21st graders. You can't tell me you're okay with that. You can't tell me.
Oh yeah. No,
I'm not going to believe that. I don't care how much you love your guns, but don't make me fix this problem. How join this conversation so that we're not yelling at each other across a gulf. That's just my personal take on it.
No, and I love it because it's solution driven rather than just negative reactionary, which is what we see all the time.
They're the ones. Yeah, you don't want a whole lot of people who I don't want to characterize liberals, but like me, latte sipping liberal. I grew up around guns. I do understand the love of them. I went hunting every year with my dad. But they're those are the guys. Those are the people who should be involved. Help us fix this thing.
Yeah.
That you love.
I know. I don't know how we get back from the us and them.
If you leave it to us, you're not going to like the solution that we come up with.
Just melt them all down, but
you really might not like the solution that we come up with,
right?
Not being gun lovers. So anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm glad you liked the song, though. I tried to make it thoughtful and look at it from a different. Just look at it from,
I like anyone or anything or any art that's created that is, and I try so hard to do this in my day-to-day life because obviously doing the movie website and the podcast and everything like that, there's a necessity to be on social media. But certainly in the last 5 whatever years, as a human being, if I wasn't kind of creating something, I would have no interest in being on social media at all. I have family back in the UK, so it's useful to kind of keep in contact with them. But what has happened is that more often than not, you just get whether it's a meme or whether it's a comment or whether it's a post or whatever, most things are driven from this sort of us and them division thing, which, has no end. There's no end to that, right? There's no suddenly one side or the other kind of suddenly going, oh shit, yeah, I was wrong all this time. Like no one's going to say it's never going to happen that, right?
Right.
So what I always look for and what I loved about the song and your take in general, because I've seen you, I saw your post about performing in drag and other things that you've posted that are sort of hot button topics. It's always coming from a place of positivity or support or we're in this together or something. It's always the solution is right in front of us. Let's all stop, kind of arguing about the minutiae and let's kind of thing. And I love that. Like the more supportive people can be and the less. I would rather support drag acts than attack the people against drag acts, if that makes any, I'd rather I'd rather support the families who have sadly lost people from violence than attack the people with guns, because attacking the people with guns doesn't solve the violence.
It won't get you. Yeah, but it won't get you It won't get you anywhere, and it won't. Nor will attacking people who feel that way about drag acts. I think.
Right.
I was. I mean, the reason that I made that post was not simply to come voice a political or a social position.
Right.
It was because I personally have done drag in the theater. I've played Betty and Jerry in Cloud 9 on Christopher Street in New York. And I've played women. And there's I don't know, how do you say this? It was a revelation for me. It was it was truly a revelation. I sat there in front of the mirror when they got me ready, and the makeup and the wig and so on. And I just sat there in front of the mirror and I saw this. I looked exactly like my mother's wedding pictures.
Mm. Yeah.
and all of a sudden I realized that it's like we're all the same. We're all basically the same creature.
Of course, yeah.
Inside and out. And it doesn't, I mean, they're not trying to enlist your children into the life of
no one is of
cross-dressing or something.
Yeah.
I just thought it was misplaced fear, and if my voice sounded reasonable or made someone think about it for a second.
You came at it from an artistic perspective. You came at it from what acting and art, and in this case drag or whatever, can teach people not only about each other but ourselves. And good art will always teach you something. And
right.
Good art is always political, even if it's the silliest thing you've ever seen, and it's not about the government, it's not about religion or whatever. There's always a politic to it. Good art always takes a stance, whether people like that or not. It always makes me laugh when people go, "Oh, I wish actors would shut up and act." And I'm like, the whole point of acting, the whole point of being an artist is that voice. Because if art isn't showing us our humanity and our future and our past and everything that we are, who is? I'm not leaving it to politicians and priests. I mean, they're not telling me anything. Right?
I was going to say, it's like let's leave it to Ted Cruz. Let's leave it
right. Man with no artistry whatsoever.
Well, yeah, and he went to, or some politician who's gone to, he was a lawyer, became a lawyer, and then went into politics and achieved this office. But that's his expertise. That's what gives him the license to have an opinion.
Right.
I have an opinion about that.
Yeah.
And the more I listen to politicians, the less I'm interested in their opinions about almost anything.
Right.
They don't, they're so good at saying what they think the audience wants to hear. That's really 99% of it, to the point where you can no longer recognize what it was that they believed.
Yeah.
If they ever believed anything themselves at all,
yeah,
it's been washed away by years of. I know you're all in favor of this,
right? There's an old John Cleese saying that something along the lines of anyone with a big desire to be a politician should stop someone from ever being a politician, or something like that.
He's absolutely that. Couldn't agree
paraphrasing,
more.
But
couldn't agree more. That's that. Anyway, but
But back to the music.
Back to these songs. I keep putting it off. They're funny. They're thoughtful.
Well, you have a great way with words. I was reminded of Tom Lehrer. You have a great way with words. I was reminded of Tom Lehrer's lyrics a lot. That's what I was reminded of, the couple of songs that I heard already.
I was raised up. That's funny. My father was a milkman in Buffalo, in Orchard Park, New York, and we lived on a farm. But we used to sit in the den, just off the living room, and I would play the soprano ukulele, and he would play a baritone ukulele, and we would go through the Mel Bay music books that he had of how to play the ukulele, and we play all of these, there is a tavern in the town.
Yeah.
But it was great because it was my dad, and and I was soaking up all of these songs and all of these. Then he got a guitar and I got a banjo. Then the Beatles happened and I got an electric guitar, and all of a sudden I was in a band, a garage band we were called the Kegs first, and then we got really cool and called ourselves the Night Riders.
Oh, nice.
KNIGHT.
Yes.
RY.
Oh, the Y. The Y. It's all
you kidding?
Y.
and we were 17, 18 years old, blonde hair, dumb as a sack of hammers. But we made a lot of noise and we played in the garage. We practiced in the garage, and then we would go do dances. We would play for dances, and it was all covers.
Yeah.
It was Stones songs and, anything we could figure out to play that had 3 chords in it.
Right.
Louie Louie or Gloria, Gloria.
Yeah.
But the British invasion had happened, and we were just caught up in it. And somewhere in there, I discovered that was like my senior year. I still have the 1965 Epiphone Sorrento.
Oh, lovely! That sounds fantastic.
I know. It's a great guitar. And I could have bought. It took me the whole summer to pay for it. It was hanging on the wall in this music store in East Aurora, about 15 miles from my hometown. And I used to go and visit it. And hanging next to it, all over the wall, were Stratocasters and Telecasters. And I could have bought, I could have filled the garage with those, if I'd wanted to. But I thought this Epiphone Sorrento was beautiful. So that's the one I bought. I actually have a funny story. Dweezil Zappa was visiting my house one time. I'm going to drop a name on you.
That's a fantastic beginning to any story. So
Dweezil Zappa came up to our house and he saw the guitar. He saw the Epiphone sitting there. It's a single cutaway, the sort of twin humbuckers. It's kind of like a ES335, but it has a shorter neck. And he started fiddling with it, and he asked if he could borrow it for his album that he was making. And I said, sure. Just to, when you bring it back, make a tape of you playing it. I would love to hear you playing it, my guitar.
Yeah.
Because I've never been an outstanding guitar player. I'm sort of a chunka. But he brought it back like 6 months later. It was still in perfect condition. And with it was this little cassette that he had made. And the cassette went something like this. It said, Hi, Bill. Dweezil here. This is what your guitar probably sounds like when you play it. And he does this like chunka 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 chunka. And he said, this is what your guitar sounds like when I play it. and he hit some pedal and turned this thing into, Jimi Hendrix. He did like 8 bajillion notes
Yeah.
in 20 seconds. And then it said, "Thanks for the loan of the guitar." It's great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And that cassette is around here somewhere.
There are places in the world musically for both Chunka 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 and Many Notes at Once. So don't sell yourself short.
Oh, no. Yeah, but the songs are really fun, and I've written a number since then, and I get better with age, I think.
Well, it's like anything, and I'm sure you found this with acting. I found this with songwriting. So I've been writing songs. First started when I was very young. I had a good friend of mine, still do, for 30 plus years, where we wrote comedy songs together because we were doing like sketches and stuff like that when we were kids, writing comedy sketches, very Python-esque influenced. And then I kind of quietly went away and wrote quote unquote serious songs. And I don't like using that distinction anymore because I don't believe that there should be. But back then it was like, oh, these are private to me because they're about a girl I like, or they're about an experience I had, or they're about a depression, or whatever it is. They were little private songs. And I didn't play them to anyone for years and years. I just recorded them on 4 tracks and kind of listened to them and got better playing them. And I shared, I think, 3 or 4 with a dear old friend of mine on a cassette. We went to different universities and we used to send each other tape cassettes all the time with the music we were listening to. And at the end of one, I was like, oh, I put 4 of my favorites, you don't have to, please don't comment, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he was, I remember he responded, I must have been about 18, 19 at the time when he responded, "Dude, this sounds just like Dave Davies from the Kinks," is what he responded. And I was like, really? And that gave me the confidence to then be more public with it and let people hear it occasionally, to the point where now I release stuff all the time on Spotify and Amazon and other places.
Well, that's where mine's going to come out on Spotify on August 1st.
But I found that I got much the more you do it, the more you exercise the muscle, the hopefully the better you get. I mean, that's so the more songs you write, the more things you put out, the more, because I've learned over the years about constructing an album and what songs go best next to each other and mixing and mastering and all that stuff. I'm very amateur, by the way. I'm not trying to claim I'm anything other than a budding amateur, but the things you learn and the things you grow and the things that you experience and the subjects you want to write about, I feel like I've grown a lot, and I'm sure you have. The more you write and the more you do it.
I think so. The things that I'm interested in now or the way that I look at relationships or things, it's I boil them down differently, and song, and it's funny too, songs will sometimes come to me. I'm a fan of the 1930s sort of Cole Porter style. I've written a couple of them that are going to come out. They're not on this album, but they're going to come out. This album is mostly acoustic.
It's just stuff you did during the pandemic that you could kind of record at home.
It was like this. I have a friend who's Denny Bonet, who's a wonderful violin player, and she added these strings underneath it, and it was like, oh my God, it was so beautiful and simple, and I just left it,
Yeah.
But I've always been a fan of this sort of I don't know, these sort of 30s songs that have an intro.
Yeah.
Everything looked lovely when you start to roam. The birds are singing the day that you stray, and wait until you get further away. That's Al Jolson, but But the idea that,
but your lyrics have that, or certainly, as I say, I think I've seen those two.
Some of them do, yeah.
Yeah, they have that kind of rep up. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? That patter almost. I don't know. But
I think I'm a lyricist.
A frustrated song and dance man.
Anyway, so there's a fair number of them that are. I can't play. I don't play the piano, and I don't play well enough on the guitar to play these. things. So I'd like sing them into a tape recorder or a digital recorder.
Yeah. I understand.
And I would send it to my friend John Colbert, who used to play piano for John Lennon.
Yeah.
And he would listen to it once and go, "Oh, no, it's like this." He would lay down the track and send it back, and then I would sing to it.
Yeah.
To the track.
I have friends who are annoyingly talented like that as well, and I just kind of
pisses you right off.
It's just raw talent. You're like, I couldn't do that in a million years of practicing, but yeah.
I'm really good with words because I think because of the acting thing, I've spent my whole life playing with language, playing with words, and
well, we're also living in a
piano for shit.
No, well, we're also living in a world where all this stuff is now possible. Like during the pandemic, I decided I had done a few collaborative albums where I had told people like, "Oh, I'm recording these songs." I would send them out, and then people would overdub tracks onto them. But during the pandemic, I really put it up a notch. I had a female singer from Belgium. I had a trumpetist from England. I had a guy from Australia, various different people who all kind of put stuff on the album.
That sounds fantastic. There was a lot of creative outreach happening.
I did a music video that included people from something like 30 countries. I just said to all these different people on Facebook, send me 30 seconds of you dancing. That's all I want, is 30 seconds of you dancing.
Really?
And I put together this video from around the world. And to me, that's the way you handle.
Did you give them the music like at least? So they were all dancing to this?
Yeah, no, everyone had the song, but yeah.
They're all dancing their own dance.
Yeah. It's fun. I love stuff like that. That's how we get through big issues.
Yes.
So the After Movie Diner right now, we're doing this series on the After Movie Diner about me making my first adult independent movie. I made one back in college, but I'm making an independent movie. So I wanted to ask you very quickly, based on your recent experiences, if you had a nugget of advice for someone who's about to go down the road of making an independent film.
Collaborate with the best people you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
If the story is good, if the writing is good, they'll be interested. Don't be shy about getting this in front of people who you respect, who you might think, "Oh, they're never going to want to do this movie." If you've written a role, you'd be surprised. And if you're talking to someone who is passionate about acting and always has been, but I think that's true of cinematographers and sound people and so on, is work with the best people you can get your hands on. And also it just elevates everything. It lifts everything. And all it takes is like a little magic to happen on camera in a room with, boom mics and people around. A little magic to happen, and the whole crew goes, "Oh man,
that was it. Yeah.
That was it. That was cool. That was cool." And now you're moving, And the other thing is, I said this to Frank Darabont one time because, I'm full of advice. I said he was getting a lot of shit from because he went over budget, I think, on Shawshank, and it was costing too much, and Rob Reiner, they were butting heads, and I said to Frank, I said, if this movie is wonderful, 10 years from now, no one will know what it cost. No one, it'll be written down somewhere, but no one will know how much money it costs to make this movie. If it's a wonderful movie, it'll have a life, and it will all have been worth it. And if it's not a wonderful movie, they still won't know what it cost.
Right. It won't matter in the end of the day.
But in that funny way, it was like, he's getting screamed at for, a few $1,000s to do this or that. I said, at the end of the day, if you've made the movie you wanted to make, no one cares. No one cares what it cost. They'll laugh at 20 years from now. They'll laugh at how little it cost to make this movie. When you can't.
Budgets only become inflated with over time.
Right. So. Now you can't make a movie for less than fucking $3 billion. Then it's like nobody cares that Die Hard 2 came in for 60 million. And that was way over budget, and they were screaming at the director. This is just keep that in the back of your head. Is if you make a wonderful 10 years from now, no one will know what this movie cost.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to cost very much, so it'll cost what it costs. Yeah. So thank you again, Bill. This has been absolutely fantastic, and that's great advice. The very last thing is you've worked with James Spader. Every year we do a series on the After Movie Diner, Sleazy Spader Springtime, because we absolutely adore James's performances and just how lascivious he can be in his roles. I know. We have like 3 minutes left. Do you have 3 words about working with James Spader, or a sentence about working with James Spader, just to tie it
I had never met the man. We were supposed to play best friends.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be my character was someone that he had known for 40 years and something. And I'm dying of cancer and I'm in bed and I want to tell my daughter or his daughter the truth about who she is or whatever it is. And we had 2 or 3 scenes together, and he's the best listener I've ever worked with. I mean, it worked both ways, because you would spend every time we went through the scene, it felt like an improv. It felt like I was hearing this all for the very first time. Like I was saying all this for the first time and it was different. I don't even know how you pick the take that you like, out of all of those takes.
Right.
But he was one of the best listeners I've ever worked with as an actor.
That's fantastic. Excellent.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Bill. Those are 2 great, excellent ways to end the show. Thanks always for your generosity. Thanks for supporting the After Movie Diner for as long as you have, and best of luck with the new album.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sometimes my life is just an embarrassment of riches, and most of those times is when I'm talking to William Sadler. My goodness, what a fantastic conversation. We covered so much. I hope you all enjoyed listening to that. I hope it encouraged you to, on August 1st, go buy William Sadler, The Kitchen Tapes, which will be available on Bandcamp on August 1st, but also available to stream on Spotify, Amazon Music, and all of the places where you normally get music. But I would strongly recommend that you purchase it on Bandcamp the day it comes out, and then go over to therealwilliamsadler.com in a little while, and there will be vinyl and CD versions of the album available for purchase, signed by the man himself, with all the proceeds of those purchases going to St. Jude's Children's Cancer Research. So, I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you go there and not only get a fantastic vinyl or CD album signed by the legendary William Sadler? Why wouldn't you do that? And at the same time, support a fantastic charity. So that was our conversation with Mr. Sadler. You will be able to check him out on Max, the streaming service, formerly HBO Max, formerly HBO, formerly you will be able to check him out in the show Full Circle And his movie She Came from the Woods is streaming currently on Tubi. And The Stage of Twilight is, as we discussed, still doing the rounds currently in some film festivals, but will hopefully find some distribution soon, possibly on streaming or hopefully in the theater. It'd be great to see that wonderful drama with that amazing two-hander between two great actors on the big screen. But anyway, thanks as always for listening to the After Movie Diner. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And go get the album on August 1st. All right, we will be back again very, very soon. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
There's a plague upon the land, a darkness on the sun. There are killers on the loose and they've got guns. I can't watch the news, it scares me half to death. Hold on, folks, let me catch my breath. We send our kids to school, they hide under their desks. They go to bed at night wondering who'll be next. And everybody knows that something's gotta change. That's when you hear that old refrain. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Let's just leave it to the man upstairs. It doesn't matter what you saw, ain't no need to change the law. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Look at that headline, oh, say it isn't true. All those people crying, wondering what to do. And everybody knows that this is just wrong. That's when you hear that old song. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, sent directly to the man upstairs. It doesn't matter what you saw, ain't no need to change the law. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. You stand before your maker, he says how to go down there. When you saw my children hungry, did you find some food to share? Did you try to stop the bloodshed? Come on, tell me what you do. And you say, Lord, I left it up to you. There's a special place in hell for the leaders of our nation who have the power to change this tragic situation. But there's money to be made if you keep the status quo. That's why their answer's still no. So close your eyes, my friends, and get down on your knees. I know he can't refuse us if we all say pretty please. But come election day, what I'm talking about, we all show up and vote the bastards out. Send them home with thoughts and prayers. With thoughts and prayers. And let's get some folks who actually care. I know it may sound rough, but thoughts and prayers just ain't enough. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers.